afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Brookline Interactive Group's show dedicated to domestic violence. This is the safety net. During COVID, we expanded the issues that we cover on the safety net. And today is an example of that. Today, our guest is Charles Carey, Brookline Town Administrator. Welcome, Charles. Let me tell you a little bit about Charles. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Susan Howards. I'm a local criminal defense attorney with a focus on domestic violence, elder abuse, child abuse, sexual harassment, and trafficking. But Charles Carey, his role, he's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the largest non-city municipality in the Commonwealth. I didn't know that about Brookline. He previously led the New York City Mayor's Office of Housing Recovery Operations, running programs that help vulnerable communities recover from Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Ida, and the COVID-19 pandemic. He concurrently served as special counsel to New York City Health and Hospitals, the nation's largest public health provider, providing pandemic-related support to its legal team. He holds a JD from Georgetown, an MFA from Warren Wilson, and a BA from Columbia. He grew up in Concord, Mass, and now lives in Cambridge with his wife, Harvard Business School senior lecturer, Christina Wallace, and their two young children. We're delighted to have him not only as our town administrator, but on the safety net. I'm going to go right into the first topic. What about Brookline's upcoming budget? Is there a budget?
There will be. We are in the process of moving as quickly through it as we can, but also thoroughly, right? For the last couple of years, we have really been in this sort of pandemic-related crouch. It has been a very difficult time for municipalities all over, and Brookline has been no different, right? The sudden, contraction in revenues from multiple different sources and the need for additional emergency services. It's really been a 1-2 punch to a lot of local communities. So we are hoping to move in this year and coming years into a new normal, right? A new way of ensuring that the services that people in Brookline have come to expect are provided at the level that they want them to be provided with. But also, this is the opportunity to reflect as we move into more of an endemic phase of COVID, unfortunately, to check on what our priorities are, what our broader needs are, and how we fund those priorities. So I was grateful that the select board made the decision to have a budget retreat in December where they dedicated many hours of their time solely to the question of, what are the town's priorities? How should we finance those? What are we looking at? One of the things that has come out of that is, ensuring that the town's employees are compensated in a competitive way so that we're retaining talent. There's also obviously the perennial concern about transportation in town, making sure that our roads are safe and making sure that we have the necessary services in place to really provide what's being asked of us. Town meeting, for example, has repeatedly asked for or questioned the idea of maybe providing an ongoing scholarship for low-income residents to recreational services. And we know that's a priority for the broader community. And so we are looking at, ways that could be financed in the immediate term, through American Rescue Plan Act funds, and potentially in the longer term through other sources. So it's a very exciting time. And I have a budget forum coming up actually on Tuesday, January 31st at 5 p.m., which will be on Zoom and open to the public. So if folks would like to have kind of a budget 101 discussion, an overview of those priorities, it would be great.
That's great, Charles. Thank you. Oh, thank you for that. I'm going to ask a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how do you balance what town meeting wants, the select board, and then your role and the other roles? I don't know how that works.
Well,
I'm a criminal defense attorney. I don't know this area.
I'm very fortunate in that, the select board is the executive of town, right? They set the agenda, and I follow the select board's guidance. But the agenda setting power is very broad. And then my role is to kind of dig deep into how, as a practical matter, the select board says, okay, we want to do more of X. We want to have more services for Y. I say, okay, I need to figure out with my team Where is that money coming from? How are we financing that? What are some of the trade-offs that we have to make with limited funds? All of that is kind of in my purview. And town meeting also plays a really crucial role in that, right? Town meeting ultimately approves the budget at the end of the day. And we have regular consultation with the advisory committee, which is the subset of town meeting that deals with finance. It's very important for us to understand what town meeting's priorities are so that when the budget comes to them in May, they're seeing what they've been asking for reflected in that budget.
Wow, I'm going to ask a question. I hear all the time about the town needs overrides.
Yes.
If you don't want to get that, I'll understand because it wasn't on our agenda, but I have to tell you, it's making me and other seniors a little queasy.
I understand that. I certainly think, so let me take a step back. Yes, I think there is the possibility of an operating override coming onto the ballot for May. But I would say two things about that. One, I think the town is very cognizant of its residents who may be on fixed incomes, or especially residents who own their houses but no longer work or can't work. I will say I'm very excited. I don't want to preempt his fire, but one of our state representatives, Tommy Vitolo, is coming to the Council for the Aging tomorrow with an exciting announcement. The state has actually authorized a home rule law for us about a means-tested property tax exemption or abatement for senior citizens. So we are looking at a very exciting opportunity for the town where we can provide some relief to people who are on fixed incomes, who are our seniors, in order to more equitably distribute, I think, any potential additional burden there. The other thing I'd say is we are really engaged in finding other sources of money before we go to an override, right? We want to make sure that everyone understands that what we're
Good to hear. Yeah.
the override is the backstop. We need to be very sure when we ask people voluntarily to pay more in property tax that they understand that we've looked for other sources, that we found other ways to fund some programs, and that they know what they're getting for their money. So it's not just a blank check to the town. We have to be very clear if we are putting an override before voters, what it is that they'd be getting and why it is that it's necessary.
Charles, that sounds terrific. With us today is Charles Carey, our town administrator. I'm going to jump right into public safety. As you know, we've had a rather undulating journey with our public safety, and I'm not going to go into the details because it's past history as far as I'm concerned, but police chief search, is there a search going on?
There is. Tonight at the select board meeting, we are going to formally announce that the position for the permanent police chief will be posted publicly tomorrow on Wednesday, the 11th. It will stay open for a month, but we're going to start expedited consideration of candidates on February 1st. I'm very fortunate that I have a group of very diversely minded citizens on a hiring panel advising me on the question of who the permanent police chief should be. And I anticipate being able to present a candidate to the select board in early March, which I know, given the turbulence in the department, I know people have often said, well, can you go faster? Can you go faster? I think what we want to do is go as fast as safely possible, but also make sure that this is the right decision, that everyone agrees that the process was fair and transparent, so that whoever winds up in that role also knows that they have the full confidence of the select board, of the broader community, and there's no, there's no concern that something was done in the dead of night, and that this person doesn't necessarily have the full confidence of the broader community. I want them to be ready on day one, knowing they earned the job.
So you are fully going to abide by the open meeting law so that we'll all be on board with what's going on.
Of course,
I hear that in your voice, and yeah.
I plan to fully abide by the open meeting law. I will say, since I know this is often a point of contention, one of the tough things about the open meeting law is, it doesn't extend necessarily to personnel decisions. You really have to be careful, especially when you're discussing something as sensitive as, say, an applicant from, what if you have multiple applicants from the Brookline Police Department, competing against each other? What if you have outside applicants whose current employers don't know that they're applying for this job? There's going to be very sensitive discussion of these people's resumes and their qualifications. So we want to make sure that the people who apply feel confident that the process can be confidential. But what I will say is, I'm going to be the open face of this. For example, the Police Commissioners Advisory Council is meeting on January 30th. I'll be there at that meeting to present the kind of thinking on that, but also to solicit comment from that committee and from the broader public about, what are the questions you want to ask? What are the questions that the public has for a potential police chief? I think those are really important things for us to focus on.
Charles, will there be any opportunity for public citizens like me to submit their views, which I think, as you know, my views are kind of stern, to you or to the advisory committee? Or is there going to be any kind of a public meeting?
So I plan to attend either the committee. As I said, PCAC is a great venue for this, for a public meeting to have a discussion, because it will be, well attended, I think, already by folks for whom this is a big issue. And then, yes, I think that will be kind of the big opportunity to have that kind of initial public forum about what the community's values are. But the other thing I'll say is that we're very fortunate that Brookline last year did a really detailed effort of putting together the position language and solicited a lot of community feedback. So rather than reinventing the wheel and taking a couple of months to do that again, I would rather us use that information we have from last year, but also have me kind of touch base back with the community to ensure that what people are hearing and what people want is clear, so that when we take that into the consideration for the role, it's first and foremost in our minds.
Wow, you have a lot on your plate, Charles. I'm going to throw this out because the show is dedicated to domestic violence.
Yes.
What is your view on domestic violence in our town? I'm going to tell you mine. Our police department does a fabulous job. We're at top of the charts in how they handle it.
Yes.
Where do you see we could improve?
I think right now, I agree with you. I think our police department does fantastic work on domestic violence, and they're really a leader in the broader Greater Boston area on this.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of those things where people say, what is it that's unique about Brookline? What makes Brookline a great place to live and work, particularly if you're interested in a public safety career? Brookline's focus on holistic policing, community policing, that addresses these issues that have historically been given short shrift by a more traditional view of law enforcement, into something that's more concrete about public safety. That's really wonderful. I think what we can do, and what I'm really excited to talk about in the coming year, is think about the resources that we have available to us in Brookline for prevention and education, particularly amongst our nonprofit community organizations. Right now, we have a large number of groups that I think do a great job talking together to one another about what it is, services they provide in the community. The Brookline Center, the Teen Center, BCF, the Food Pantry. There are many great organizations out there, too many to name. But our health director, Sigal Reese, I think has really made it a priority of hers, and I'm very supportive of this, to think about, you say, this is the name of the show, is the safety net, to really evaluate our safety net, to say, let's get all these groups together and have a conversation about the services we're providing. Where are the overlaps? Where are the gaps? And I think that's particularly important with domestic violence and intimate partner abuse, because I think a lot of times we assume that those resources are available, but it can often be the case that there are gaps that are just unseen,
and they're not accessible sometimes. Sometimes it's not that they're not accessible. Let me rephrase. Those who are in need don't know how to access them. And that's where the education, I think, I've been doing this work for over 30 years, needs to come in. But thank goodness the police department is so proactive.
Yes.
We are known for that. Brookline is really a standard bearer for the work they've done in domestic violence. I'm going to switch right into social services. That sort of dovetails what you're talking about.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yes, that was what I wanted to kind of discuss, this idea of, there's been a lot of discussion in town about, the need to kind of focus on the social services that the town can provide. And I want us to be very deliberate about that conversation. I don't want us to just say, well, let's just create a new Department of Social Services and give it a broad mandate. I think having a social services as a provision, as a town good, is a great idea. But I want us to do that in a really deliberate and measured way that does not just, create a broad-based, potentially overlapping mandate and then say, I'm sure you'll sort it out. For example, Cambridge, where I live, the city of Cambridge, they have a new Department of Social Services up and running, but they're not doing anything. Their entire first year is basically being devoted to grant management to figure out what the scope of their work should be. And I think rather than doing that and spending the town's money on that, I think we need to be smarter in identifying our needs, which is why I'm really grateful that our health department and our police department are both at the forefront of thinking about what is the actual need in our community and how can we target that so that the town can provide those services.
How are you going to identify the needs, Charles? I mean, I think that I think some of the needs are identified now,
Yes.
but how are you going to upgrade the identification process? Because there are hidden citizens in Brookline. I know, I have them as clients.
Yes.
They don't want to go to the police. They don't want to go to the town government. They don't want to meet a Charles Carey. Who's Charles Carey?
Right.
They don't want. That's what I don't want. So how do we do that? Because I think it's a really good thought.
It is very hard, right? One of the things that I find most helpful about community outreach is trusted partners, right? You're right. People don't want to hear it from me, but they might want to hear it from you, Susan Howard, someone who has experience in this. They might want to hear it from someone who looks like them and talks like them. What if they don't speak English? What if they, what if they don't have papers? What if they are, what if they've been trafficked? Those are, hidden members of our community, as you said, who we have limited outreach to. And that's why I think having a discussion, not just amongst our departments, but amongst the people who are really out in the community as nonprofit and community providers, will provide us with a survey of what we're missing. Where are we underserving our community and what resources can be brought to bear? Because sometimes the answer is not a top-down, the town will do this approach. Sometimes the answer is the town needs to fund community organizations that people trust to do that work.
Exactly. And I don't know how you use the word outreach, and I use it all the time, but we need the people to reach in.
Yes.
It's like leaning in, that book. But this is something that I've been thinking about. How do we get people to reach in? We outreach, we have all of these things, we offer them, nothing, I can tell you, particularly in domestic violence, sexual abuse, kids, child abuse, elder abuse.
Yeah.
Boy, that's the best kept secret. Seriously, They don't want to come forward. So I don't know how we do a reach in, but we might want to use that slogan, and we can talk about it offline. You can copy it. That's fine.
I like it.
Yeah, because I think that's really where we have to go. I really do. And the last thing is a new select board code of conduct. I'm going to ask you a very dumb question.
Sure.
Was there a code of conduct?
No, there was not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm very grateful. Again, the select board really took leadership on this. They, as a body in September, when they had their kind of initial retreat, as sort of also an introduction to me and a handoff of the great work that Mel Kleckner did over the last 12 years, to talk through, what are our community values as a town, particularly when it comes to what do we expect from our elected officials and what do we expect from our town employees. it's really tough, I think, in a town that is so engaged on a community level that Brookline is, with more than 200 town meeting members, lots of people who, even if they don't serve on town meeting, are really engaged in local politics and local process. It can be hard sometimes for people to kind of think through, what, where are the boundaries? Where do we, how do we talk to one another in a way that's respectful, but also makes clear that, there are priorities that need to happen. And I think it's been great because what it says is it's really a floor. It's an opening of a conversation to say that, we as town employees want to be helpful. We want to be as helpful as possible to the citizens we are supposed to serve. And to that end, we need to be, friendly and open and accessible to the public. And we also need to convey to the public that our time is limited. And there are situations where, I think through really just not out of any sort of malice or but just a lack of knowledge, people will come in and say, hey, why can't the town do this? I'm going to email, I'm going to email someone and I expect it to be done. And I think we have to be able to say, listen, we want to be as helpful as possible, but we also want to set boundaries and clear limits so that people understand the importance of the priorities that we have already in front of us. So
And
that's
limited
really
staff, that's what I see. I think the select board needs more staff or a staff. I don't even know if they have a staff. I think that they're running around doing everything individually. And that's just from my perspective. And I don't know if we could afford it, but it would certainly, I think it would be a good thing if they had a little staff.
It's very interesting too, right? My office is technically the select board office. So when you think of who the select board staff is, that's me, that's Melissa Goff, our deputy town administrator,
Yep.
our two assistant town administrators, Devin and Charlie, and our licensing specialists, Tiffany and Rochelle, and Kate, and Tyler, who's our grant coordinator. It's a great team up here, and I'm really lucky to have them. But the being able to kind of think through what it is that we need in the future too, I think is also one of those loops back to where we started, which is the budget.
Exactly.
If that's a priority for the town, then we, the team up here, need to figure out a way to pay for it, and how to prioritize that.
But Charles, you need to let us know what you need. I don't think the town, and I'm pretty active in the town, as you may know, I don't think they are really on top of what is it that's needed that would make your job more efficient. And I'm not saying it's not productive, and more productive. And for those of the select board too, what would make it be easier for them to be select board members?
I think, so one of the many things I think is, when we think about good governance, I think there are some questions that have been raised by town meeting that are good ones. For example, being able to, the select board right now takes a huge amount of its time on licensing issues. In other communities, that would be someone like me, that would be my job. The select board could delegate it. And then if someone disagreed with the decision that I made or my office made, they could appeal it to the select board. So the select board wouldn't have to hear those things in the first instance. Trouble is, in order for that to happen, we need the legislature to step in. And unfortunately, a licensing bill on that front died at the last lap on the last legislative session, and we were not able to get it, which drove us crazy. So we're hopeful that this time around, the legislature will act quickly to delegate that authority so that the select board can spend more of its time on those big ticket agenda items that it needs to spend time on, and less time on day-to-day operational issues, which is really the stuff that they hire staff to do and we should be doing for them.
Right. Charles Carey, Brookline Town Administrator, in the last minute or two, what would you like the viewers to know? What would you about you, or about what your hopes for Brookline?
I've been overwhelmed by the welcoming response that I've received. I've been on this job now for almost 4 months, and it has just been a really energizing and welcoming environment. I say to my wife how happy I am to go to work every day. It really is, it's not without its challenges. It's not without its tough conversations. But this is a really engaged and active and exciting place to work. I think we have a lot of exciting work in front of us in the new year. I think we are moving towards a vision of an increasingly open and welcome and hospitable Brookline that maintains its unique character while also developing with the times and making sure that it remains at the cutting edge of things like climate change and, for example, community policing and the issues addressed by the police department, especially in regards to domestic issues. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of this community, and I'm very grateful to you for inviting me on, and for everyone who said
Charles,
hi.
we're delighted that you're here. We're excited that you're here. And how do people get in touch with you? Just
Well,
call town hall, or?
You can always call town hall. My email is carey@brooklinema.gov. People say, does he read his email? I read my email. So it may take me a little while to get back to you. It's very busy right now, but I promise you I do read my email. And it is always heartening to hear people's opinions. So I really do welcome your comments, your questions, complaints. If I can help you, I will. I'm very, very fortunate to hear from you. So thanks.
And I think your newsletter is terrific. We're going to end on that note. Everybody should subscribe to the town administrator's newsletter. Charles, Carey, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back, and we wish you all the best in the coming days.
Thank you so much, Susan. Take care.
I don't know. Bye.